calling people at odd hours or whatever. Approach people and knock on doors. Don't be afraid. Some will receive you, some will not. Some will want to talk to you, some will not. Some will avoid you, some will not. But go out. Understand. Start wherever. When you finish your LLB, look for articles. It may not be easy to get articles. If you have to volunteer, fine, volunteer. Because the focus is not on getting articles. The focus is on you becoming a very competent lawyer in your own field, in your own right, in your own way. We may not all make it to the media, but it doesn't mean that we are not flourishing. That you started with someone and they seem to be ahead of you doesn't mean that you're lagging behind. One may be a professor, another one may be a judge, and you may be running your own practice and maybe not getting so much work, but it doesn't mean that the professor is more successful than you are and that the judge is more successful than you are. You're making an impact wherever you are. The judge is making an impact wherever they are. The professor is also making an impact wherever they are. There are lives that you're changing where you are in your own world, in your farm, in your practice, or in your job. There are lives that you're changing and impacting where you are. So the professor may not be able to impact the lives that you're impacting in your law firm or in your job or in the company that you're working for. And you may not be able to impact the lives that a professor is impacting or be able to impact the lives that a judge is impacting, but you're making a difference wherever you are. So imagine if you decided to finish school and sit at home and do nothing, and yet you are supposed to go join a company and help out in this legal department where you will maybe help out an employee who was going to be fired, but because they were following the wrong procedures, you stepped in and changed that person's life. But you decided, I'm dropping out of school. I'm not going to be a lawyer. I don't want to know. You decided and gave up because a lecturer told you that you won't make it with this your 46%. Or someone made a comment that when you can't be a lawyer. That comment just paralyzed you, messed you up, and now because someone said you will not be a lawyer, or even if you started a law firm, no client will come. Because of those comments, you decided and said, hey, I'm not starting, I'm not going to open a law firm. What if no one comes? But what if you open and no one comes today, but tomorrow someone comes? What if you open today and 10 clients walk into your office? What if that happens? So you cannot shrink yourself because of anything outside of you. No one has the right to cause you to shrink yourself. And be so good at what you do to a point that people are, when they ask about, I need a notary public. I'm looking for a notary public. Sheila's name must surface in someone's mind as, I know of a lady called Sheila. Please call her, she will help you. If they're asking, oh, I'm looking for a conveyancer, your name must appear, it must show up in someone's mind. I've heard of this conveyancer, and I'll get the number and give it to you. Even if it's just a small field that you choose to go into, be so good at it that do your work. I'm very fussy personally when I'm doing my work. So if I'm to do work for you, I am very, very fussy. I have to do it a certain way because at the end of the day, it is my reputation. It is my name that is on that document. It is me that they will, when they are reading that document, they will be thinking of me. They will see me. If my document is going to whichever department in this Republic of South Africa, it's on my letterhead, it's going to be seen. So I'm very fussy. I will not do work according to what the client wants me to do. If I can't do work according to what I am supposed to do, I am not going to do it. That's just my principle. I will not produce a document that is not in order because a client wants me to do it this way. Never. Yes, the client has to instruct you, but remember your name, as long as your name appears on a document, Your name is the one that is going to be judged, not the client who told you draft this letter this way. No, no, no. It is you. So when you're producing your work in a company, in an organization, in your business, do it with diligence. Even if you're typing a letter, double read it. Read that document. If you're supposed to be in court at 8:30, be in court at 8:30. Why? Because you're building a name for yourself, a reputation for yourself. When someone is looking for someone who can draft a letter for them, let your work speak for you. She drafted a letter for me, and I liked the way she drafted it, and I didn't have a problem. She drafted a contract for me, and I had no problems with that contract. You get what I'm saying? So the small things that you do should be the ones to speak for you. It doesn't matter how many clients you have. It never matters. You don't need millions of clients. Neither do you need to start working at a large company. No. The work that you produced in that law firm where you started is the one that will speak for you to this big company that you want to join. That 2,000 rand that they paid to you as a candidate attorney, or that voluntary work that you did at a law firm because you wanted to serve articles, and you did your work so diligently, is the work that will speak for you in a bigger company. So start somewhere and believe in yourself. Sorry, guys, I think I took your time too much.
What an inspirational way to start off, Ms. Ndagije. Thank you very much for your contribution to our event today. We truly appreciate it, and we wish you all the best with your other commitments for the day and beyond. And we free you at this point so that you may go and attend to your other business.
Thank you so
and
much.
However, I just wish to point out that we will have a question and answer between guests and attendees, and we will note down any questions directed at Ms. Ndagije, because I think she's already left, and perhaps we can arrange how she can answer them at a later stage. So attendees, if you have any questions that you want to ask Ms. Ndagije, or any comments, even if she's no longer on the platform, we can still note those down and proceed to arrange how she can answer them. Our second guest, ladies and gentlemen, is Professor Phoko, who is a professor of law, an advocate of the High Court of South Africa, and an acting judge of the High Court of South Africa, among several other accolades. Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about also a member of the South African Electoral Court, who holds an LLD in international law, an LLM from the University of Notre Dame in the USA, and several other accolades, ladies and gentlemen. At this stage, sir, we truly appreciate you accommodating us, and we welcome you to the platform. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Madam Program Director, thank you very much for the warm introduction. Chairperson of Fala Advocate Mchana, Advocate Mpofu, the previous speaker Sheila Ndaji, and also the last speaker Nosisa Kekana. To the audiences, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is my pleasure to be part of this occasion on this warm Saturday. I hope that I am audible and I am visible, even though I cannot see myself from this side.
You are audible and visible, Professor.
Thank you very much. I think I got spoiled and I'm used to team. I hope that my camera is only showing appropriate things. This is the way I intend to proceed with my presentation. Firstly, I'm going to deal with a bit of my background. That is, where am I from and what is it that I stand for? Secondly, I'm going to deal with my varsity journey up until I started the workplace. The third aspect I'm going to address, it relates to entry into the career market and or for one to be able to know what is it that they want to do with their respective careers. And the last one, I intend to conclude. Madam Program Director, let me first make a disclaimer. I'm not the professor who gives students 65%, but I give them 64%. I was born and bred in a small town of Matatiele in the Eastern Cape. Just like many of fellow South Africans, our challenges are the same. We grew up experiencing high levels of poverty, lack of opportunities, and so on. I also come from that group. Because of lack of educational opportunities where I was born, I proceeded to complete my high school in Johannesburg, somewhere in Soweto, Tabajabula High School. When I was in matric, my main desire was to become a medical doctor. That was the first option. The second one, to become a male nurse. After writing matric, obviously, if you come from, a disadvantaged background, you always have a pressure to work more because one way or the other, you know that the chances of you going to varsity are negative. I wrote my matric many years ago, and when the results came, mathematics did not appear on my certificate. So it means mathematics showed me colors. That meant that was the end of my career ambition to become a doctor on a male nurse. Following that, I was advised to consider repeating matric, but because, of the pressure back at home and poverty, I said, there's no way that I'm going to repeat matric. Instead, I'm going to look for an opportunity to work so that I can support some of my siblings and family. I obtained a job somewhere in Rustenburg. That job was my first job, and I was a security officer. The clear is vivid as if I was starting today. That's what I did after varsity. And all my friends had gone to all the universities that you can think of, Wits, UCT, and so on. But there's one thing that I carried with me: hope and determination. I knew that my life was destined for greater heights. I soldiered on. One of the days, because I'm a very curious someone, I met a gentleman by the name of Nketsi Masibe. He was at varsity then, and I asked him, how are you studying, any funds and so on? He said, yeah, there's money. If you so wish, we can arrange and I share some ideas. Fast forward, after the short meeting I had with that gentleman, I went to the University of the Northwest. That was in Mafike, as it was known then, and now it is Northwest University. I managed to enroll, obtained the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, and that's how I started. Because I did not have, meet the requirements, I started with the so-called a bridging course. This bridging course basically enables you to enroll for a degree if you so happen to progress. And my bridging course was then a diploma in human rights, and I completed it. The following year, I enrolled for my master's. But now, I enrolled for the LLB. So as I was doing my bridging course in human rights, that's when I started developing an interest in the law profession, that if this course sounds interesting, it deals with the day-to-day challenges that people face. Then I went straight to LLB. Obviously, for me, pressure was there because I had already experienced working as a security officer and I was the youngest at work there. So I did not want to go back there because I knew what it means to arrive at work at 6 o'clock and you stand at the door from 6 until 1 when it is lunch, and you stand again up until 9 o'clock when everyone has left the shop because you have to close as a security officer. So those were some of my driving forces, and also to empower my own family and the people surrounding me in my home village. I was not a bright student, I must confess. I think my average was 60s, 70s, and distinctions there and there. But what I remember very well is that I completed my LLB degree in 3 years, 6 months. I had no time to waste at varsity because I knew what I wanted. I never failed any course. What I remember is that labor law is the only course which at some stage came back with the final results saying failed. And I said, there's no way I can fail. I applied for remarking and it came back with a pass because I knew my story. Not that I was a bookworm. Remember, at varsity, that's where you also experience personal development. But I was also engaged in all other activities that the students do. I partied, I went out with friends and so on. But I knew that when it came to my books, I had to ensure that I exit the system on record time. Fast forward now, the articles came. I started my articles at the Legal Resources Center in Durban. It's an NGO mainly dealing with human rights issues. I was very good at my work, confident, go in court, argue magistrate's court, because as a candidate attorney, you can appear in certain courts, I think up to regional courts. But another challenge came now, the board exams. I went for the first attempt. I wrote 4 of them. I only passed 1, which is ethics. And the frustration started kicking in. I went for the second time, and there was this thing called bookkeeping. Remember, bookkeeping, you have many calculations there. And that, horror of failing grade 12 to the extent that mathematics did not even make it on my matric certificate had always caused a trauma when it came to figures. Second attempt, I went for these 3 book admissions courses. I failed them again and qualified for an oral. If you are closer to passing, you qualify for oral so that they can see whether you are taking chances or not. I went for the orals. I failed the orals. Usually, I'm a person who is, patient. Then I said, you know what? These board exams are going to waste my time. Poverty is unbearable. I said goodbye because I was also good, at academia. Let me proceed and enroll for the master's degree. I think then I was a bit traumatized because, if you have dedicated so much time wanting to become a lawyer, it can be discouraging if you don't get the ultimate results. When I enrolled for my master's at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, the supervisor and I did not get along. I said, you know what? Let me leave this master's. I went to clerk as a law researcher at the Constitutional Court. That's where eventually I obtained, a sponsorship to go and study overseas. From overseas, I did my PhD and I completed it. And that was now my purely academic journey. I had kissed goodbye to practicing law full time. And I did the admission as an advocate without a privilege. That, to a certain extent, it gave me some comfort in that at least some of my networks were able to brief me as an independent advocate to go and do some cases once in a while. But I focused more now on the academic journey, and eventually I became a professor of law. Hence today I'm referred to as a professor. Being a professor comes up with its own challenges, because the first assumption is that people assume that you know everything, and that is not correct. So automatically, when you are a professor, you are forced to always engage in professional development journeys so that you empower yourself. When you are called to engage on serious issues, you are able to make an input. So I'm now dealing with the workplace. Remember that when you enter the workplace as a Black person, automatically you are at a disadvantaged position. And the basis for that is because of the color of your pigmentation. The first thing is that you have to prove yourself twice that you are also capable to be there, even if some of your work speaks for itself, but you still need to work hard because you are Black. And the challenge now is no longer that you are only Black, but there are certain Black people who are creating barriers for fellow Black people because they want to be regarded as the only ones who have made it. So when you enter the job market, go there with these in mind and let them not deter you from achieving what you want. I'm not speaking something new. Those of who are working know it. Even at varsity level, if you are a Black person, you must know where you belong, because certain advantages are channeled to certain people, regardless of whether you qualify or not. So the job market, unfortunately, has changed. It's no longer business as usual for law graduates. The high, economic negative conditions has severely impacted on the recruitment and providing opportunities for law graduates. I invite you to always ensure that you broaden your horizon. If it doesn't mean, if you don't enter the job market at this stage, it doesn't entail that you will not make it. Or if you don't immediately enter into what you've always wanted to do, that's the end of the road. Just try to make sure that when we are saying, Mthembeni Mzobe, here is an opportunity, you are not only going to make noise, but let your work speak for itself. Remember that automatically by default, you are in the negative position because you are Black. You cannot run away from that. So broaden your horizon and explore less traveled areas. Sheila did indicate one of them. For example, consider areas that are less explored, such as cyber law, space law, international law, law of the sea, and tax law. These are areas that, most of Black people are not comfortable with. And I believe that we are equally capable in entering these fields and making a name for ourselves. And one of the things that I've realized with current graduates, they are only confined in pursuing careers only within the borders of South Africa. I think that is a negative approach. Broaden your horizon and go as far as the United Nations. Consider job opportunities in other countries. It is an obvious factor that the legal profession is saturated, especially going into articles and advocates. But even if that's the case, it does not mean that you should not take a chance. Without risks, there would be no life. So you must always be prepared to take risks. Create networks. This organization has created a platform that during our days as students, we never had these things. So I acknowledge Fala for having created this platform to ensure that it spread knowledge. This is an opportunity for you to network within those who are part of this discussion. And feel free to reach out, even beyond this gathering, that Advocate Njana, Speaker 1, 2, 3, and 4, they spoke on something that I'm willing to consider going forward. Could you please try to connect me with them? That is how you start building networks. And these should be lifelong networks. Don't attend events to go there and keep quiet the whole day. Then when it's time to eat, you are the first one to go and dish. Let our people start taking career issues seriously. Because without these networks, I tell you, you will complete your LLB degree and go and sit at home. Something that is very painful. So these networks should be taken seriously. You must do something, at the end of the day, when the sun sets, you must be able to go in your small corner and check your goals. What have I done today? If you are a law person, whether graduate or you are still studying, a day goes by, and when the sun sets, goes by, you haven't done anything towards your professional development. You are already one step behind. So if 5 days passes by, you haven't done anything, it's just accumulating. It cannot be that you are a legal profession or a student and the day goes by, you haven't done anything. If you are doing your master's or you are studying, at least per day, even if it means reading a paragraph, you have done something to empower yourself. And at the end of the day, those paragraphs would have multiplied. Sacrifice. Our people don't want to sacrifice. And the fact that you are here, it shows that you understand the issue of of sacrificing. In your life, you are going, as you grow professional, there are many sacrifices that you will need to make. And at times, it's hard, to strike an equilibrium because someone will be saying, let us go and do this at this stage. On the other hand, someone will be saying, here is an opportunity, come, let us work on this Saturday. It's your future. You are the one who will need to decide what is it that you want to do. Then the issue of marriage, I think it's also very important that I touch on that topic. My fellow brothers and sisters, before you enter into a full-time commitment, please empower yourself so that you don't become a burden to someone else. And when they leave you, you have nothing to rely on. The second one is that always try to get someone who will support your career progression. If you get someone who will constantly make noise that you spend more time on your career, that person is not good for you. And it's going to backfire and end in tears. So I'm saying here, try to choose a person who is more likely to support your career development. Because if you do not have support, I can assure you now, everything that you want to pursue is going to be strenuous. I've already highlighted on touching on unpopular fields and broadening your horizon, that is exploring opportunities beyond Africa. I now move on. I touched on the subject that even if it means that you don't get what you had wanted to do in the beginning at this stage, it doesn't follow that, you will never become that thing. For example, I've just narrated a story on how passionate I was about, becoming a lawyer and practicing law. But because of some barriers, I couldn't pass, board exams, especially accounting. If I see figures, they traumatize me, So I know that is my weak point. So I ran away. If you have the ability at an early stage to identify something that, is going to give trouble to you, it's either you persevere or you choose another thing. For me, I chose to go academia and I have no regrets whatsoever because I've achieved what I wanted in academia and I'm happy. So I emphasized about if you are doing something, let your work speak for itself. Don't only make noise. When they have recommended you and we look at your CV, we must say, yes, this person knows his or her story. Barriers are everywhere, even in academia. I believe that if I was only interested in my own personal development, I would have attained professorship, at a very early stage. Even now, I know some people say you are a professor, but you look young and so on. but I would have been a professor way back. Some of the things that have prevented or delayed, my professional development is because I have previously spoken openly about the injustices that are perpetuated against Black professionals in academia. And those things, they've delayed me. But I'm glad because they delayed me so that when you guys decide to go in academia, the struggles that I faced should not come and delay you as well. You need to go there and face new challenges. These ones were meant for me. That's why I had to travel through them. But even if that's the case, they have never stopped me from working hard. My work is out there and it speaks for itself. Fast forward to 2022. I think it was late 2022. I was sitting on my desk, right where I am seated. I'm sitting at home doing some work. And an email entered. You know, when an email entered and your volume is up, there's that noise. Tweet. It made a noise. I said, I wonder who's writing to me on a Saturday. And when I opened the email, I saw that it is an invitation to come and act as a judge of the High Court in Pretoria. I said, no, these people must be mistaken now. I go back, I look at the addresses. I said, no, let me not respond. You know, that is the testimony of hard work, because the fruits of hard work will follow you wherever you are. So because of certain barriers, I couldn't act in 2022, but from 23 onwards, I have also been acting as a judge. It's good to be a judge. It's something prestigious, especially if you come from, the academic field. But other than that, at least it serves as a consolement in that at one stage, having served my articles, I'd always wanted to interact practically with the legal principles and deal with real cases. It's something that came back way after I had forgotten that it would have come back. Being a judge, especially from academia, maybe my colleagues from practice can speak differently. But remember, when I went to act as a judge for the first time, you are told that this is your own court. You decide. It's up to you how you run it. I've never been a judge before. That was the first, call. And I had to do a lot of research. I emphasized the issue of, keeping professional networks. I reached out to my former supervisor at SERI, Socio-Economic Institute of Economic Rights. When I came abroad from completing my master's, I worked there as an intern. Luckily, it was a paid intern. So I phoned him, Stuart, I've been invited to act as a judge. I know you've acted before. Give me some tips. By the way, Stuart, I think 2 years ago, was also appointed as a permanent judge. And because of this, the importance of professional networks, it was easy for me to call him and say, give me tips. And he gave me lots of readings and guidance. In addition to that, I'm a person who go. If I don't know anything, I'm not afraid to ask. I called some few guys who are in practice. Just tell me the things that you face on daily basis and so on. With all that, pre-work research and advices, they made me so confident to the extent that if when you entered into my court, you could say, but this person has been a judge way back, whereas it was my first time, because I had done proper research before going to the High Court. You don't want to embarrass them. You need to do a lot of reading. You need to sacrifice as well. I talked about the issues of sacrifices. I used to run a nightclub, very busy. Alcohol can keep you very busy, especially entertainment industry. But because of my commitments, I had to decide whether I still want to run both or is it possible. But as a judge, I tell you, every time is worth it, every second. At no stage in my life I ever thought that 3 months is such a short period of time. Remember, as a judge, you have to deliver your judgments in 3 months. I tell you that 3 months, it's like nothing. This year, I don't know where did 2023 go, because I was stuck most of the time at the court. Surprisingly, it's now November, and I'm still working on some of the judgments which are almost due. So at no time I ever thought that I would say 3 months, is such a long time. 3 months is nothing. You get a judgment, you reserve a judgment today, you do some readings, you wake up the other day, you are left with 3 weeks. And you know that the issue of outstanding judgments is a hot potato. So you don't want to have those. So those are some of the challenges. How do you keep the balance now? This side, you also have family. You need to strike, a balance. And don't be afraid. As you progress in your career, I think Sheila touched on it as well, you are going to lose friends unknowingly. Some of your good friends whom you thought will always be there when it rains and when it's hot or sour will be there. You phone them one day, they give you a cold shoulder. It's automatic, it's natural. And at some stage, you are going to be lonely, because everyone will simply, isolate themselves from you. Those are some of the challenges, you will face as you progress through the ladder. Another thing, the issue of reading, I cannot overemphasize it. You see, personally, I don't need a gym because I'm skinny. I prevent weight through doing a lot of reading. If you want to lose weight, you spend more time on books. I tell my students, because reading irritates by its nature. You can imagine if you are an academic, you are going to court. You have to first familiarize yourself with rules. Advocate Nchana and others are in an advantaged position because they are in practice on daily basis. But for me, I had to sit down and go through the rules. Erasmus, what does this mean? Criminal court, how does this function? And so on. So it was a double work for me. Besides that, when I move out from the court, my academic demands also come into play. So you need to create a balancing equilibrium to ensure that you are always on track with all your responsibilities. As I conclude, colleagues, audience, students, and so on, it is possible. No one can determine your destiny other than yourself. There is no shortcut to success. Work hard, Let your work speak for itself. When you make noise and they open your work, those things must balance. Don't make noise if you cannot work. Put more effort and you will be recognized. In one way or the other, in our career paths, there is where we reach what we call so and so is at the peak of his or her career. If you work hard, the peak of your career will come sooner than expected, and you will not have to struggle. You will be sitting at home and you will get invitations and so on. I never knew anyone before I became a judge. I was just invited because of my work, which is out there. Yes, at the electoral court, I applied, but because my work also supplemented what I have, then it became, sort of easier to get into the court. With those a few words, don't give up. Explore the areas that are less traveled. Never underestimate the power of hard work and networking. And choose your friends. Most of my friends, I think I was fortunate. I don't know whether it's God or it's my ancestors or my parents. But in almost throughout my professional life, my friends have been people who are older than me. I think that's how I also managed to survive most of the things. So it's easy for me. If I need an advice, I simply call them and so on. With those few words, there is no more time to waste. If we unite now, we share ideas, victory is guaranteed. We know that there are systematic barriers that are there to discourage and challenge us. But united, there is nothing that can prevent us from going forward. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you.
Professor, this is the kind of enlightenment and inspiration that we sorely needed, and we thank you and appreciate you for it. Please note that there will be a question and answer session at the end, and I'm sure our attendees have questions to ask you or comments to make. May you please stay on the platform until such time. Thank you very much.
Well noted. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes. I now turn to our last guest for this event, who is Advocate Nosisa Kekana. Advocate Nosisa Kekana is an advocate of the High Court of South Africa, and we are proud to mention that she is a member of the Thulamela Chambers, which is affiliated to the Johannesburg Bar. Advocate Kekana, we thank you for accommodating us today, and we welcome you to the platform. Over to you, Counsel.
Thank you so much. I hope you can all hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, and can you see me? I'm going to be, the topic today is quite a very, first of all, let me thank my hosts heartily for the privilege and the opportunity to give this talk to I would say our colleagues, even to the students, because I do believe that they are prospective colleagues. I will be addressing especially the advocate's practice, but before I do so, I definitely do concur with the topic for today, the versatility of a law degree in the contemporary South Africa. And to a certain extent, I hope I'll be able to give you a bit of a glimpse of my journey, because I have to a certain extent been privileged enough to experience the versatility of having a law degree. I would first give you a brief background, or in a nutshell, or a synopsis of my profile. And I will venture into my qualifications and professional training. I will give you a career synopsis and basically looking at the advantages of the exposure that I was able to gain throughout my journey in the different fields. And then I will look into the advocates' practice. Starting with the introduction, in a nutshell, who is Nosisa? Nosisa is a girl from the Eastern Cape, born and bred, grew up in Namtata, studied there. I am an admitted advocate of the High Court of South Africa. I am a member of the Johannesburg Association of Advocates, a former attorney who has practiced in the Eastern Cape and in Gauteng. I have occupied the role of a company secretary or governance specialist for 3 JSE listed entities, being Basel Reed Holdings Limited, Group 5 Limited, and MTN Group. They're all listed in the JSE. And my last corporate position before joining the bar, I was also a group company secretary for Tebe Investments. It's not a listed entity, but it's a private entity. And before joining the bar, I was a company secretary for Airports Company South Africa Limited, AXA, where I also acted as the head of legal at the time. I gained a lot of experience in JSE listing requirements as well as corporate governance. I completed a higher diploma in company law through Wits and an LLM in corporate law from the University of Johannesburg. I am married with 3 amazing children, 18, 17, and 10 years old. Now, just to take you through my qualifications, what I have done. The judge spoke about opportunities and our backgrounds and where we come from. And I must say that most of us, especially people of my age, we were not that much exposed as to what career paths one could venture into. You know, you're either a teacher, you're a lawyer, you're a doctor, you're a nurse, you're a policeman. But even within those fields, especially law, you're not well versed as to what opportunities are within the practice of law or the legal profession. So when I passed my matric in Namtata and very upset that I didn't get an exemption at the time, and I could only get into, gain entry into university through a diploma. And at the time, the University of Transkei, which is now Walter Sisulu University, offered a diploma called Diploma Juris. And that's how I entered into university. But on my second year, I was able to convert it to a degree, which is B Juris. After my 3-year B Juris, I did my Bachelor of Law, which is an LLB. At the time, it was an equivalent of an honors degree. And after passing my LLB, I enrolled as a candidate attorney. At the time, we were called articled clerks at a law firm in Namtata, ex-Mbedze Incorporated. And as part of my articles, I had a stint for 6 months at the School of Legal Practice. I think now it's called LPT, I think. But then it was called the School for Legal Practice. And I got admitted as an attorney in 1997, wherein I then practiced in Umtata. After that, I then had an opportunity to come to Joburg to search for greener pastures. And I was employed in a law firm called Chwene Kwinana Mutsatse Incorporated, where I was employed as an associate. And during that time, later on, I registered for a higher diploma in company law. Before the New Companies Act came to be, I was very fortunate before it came to be that we were able to debate around the issues, you know, during the drafting of that particular legislation. And following that, I was able to then do a master's in corporate law with the University of Johannesburg, which I then completed in 2016. Now, in as far as my career path after my admission, like I said, I practiced for a bit and I moved to Johannesburg. But you come to Johannesburg and you get exposed, you see your friends being in corporate, and you get curious and you wonder, what is it that they do? Because they seem to be high flyers and you're sweating in practice in a law firm, and they're in corporate and they seem to be having easy lifestyles, and you become curious and you want to know what it means to be a legal advisor. So whilst I was at Chwenequina Namuzadze Incorporated, I ventured into the corporate sector, where I was employed as a legal advisor for Basil Reed, a construction company. Now, as I go along with my talk, I do want to highlight some of the things, the advantages of the exposure throughout my journey in the different fields. And I think before I proceed, let me start a bit with my articles. When I was doing my articles of clerkship or as a candidate attorney, I think I was, let me not say I think, I know I was privileged enough to be trained by a very astute, meticulous, and hardworking man who taught me great work ethic, a very thorough person, who is now the current Deputy President of the Supreme Court of Appeal, Deputy President Xola Mlungisi-Betse. So I had that opportunity, and obviously at that time, I did not know that he would be the DP at the SCA. But it was definitely a privilege for me to be trained by him. And moving on from my articles, but something else that I think I need to mention for the law students in the platform is that, you know, the legal profession can be quite daunting. The judge mentioned the reading, and it's a lot of reading. I don't know how he does it with being in academia and also, you know, being an acting judge, but there's a lot of reading and it can be quite overwhelming. And by virtue of you being a law student, somehow there's this conception that we know everything. I don't know, but I like it. People think we know everything. People ask you all sorts of questions on finance, on law, and on a whole lot of things. And they assume that we know everything. But one of my lecturers once said that you may not know everything in the law. You may not know all the laws. But the important thing as a law student is that you must know where to find the law. And I think being at university, that is the opportunity that you have right now to develop the skills and the tools to be able to research the law, to know where to find the law so that you can, you know, in your career going forward, you are better equipped as you venture into drafting, into litigation, in all of that. So it's very important to know where to find the law. That is something I learned at varsity. And in my articles, like I said, I learned a very good work ethic of just being thorough in the work that I do. And then fast forward, I am employed as an associate at a law firm called Chwenequina Namuzadze. And at the time, this was one of the medium-sized law firms, and we were very fortunate at the time because it is during the transition to the democratic dispensation where a lot of things were changing in the country. The government was looking at corporatizing some of the state entities, and I was exposed to things that I didn't even knew existed, things like due diligence, you know, things like how do you restructure IPOs, how, you know, all those things that I never really learned at university. But by virtue of being in that space, I got to be exposed to that kind of work, which was such a privilege for me. So that is one of the great advantages of the exposures that I got. And then I moved on from practicing as an attorney. Obviously I got into that part that I then ventured into the corporate sector as a legal advisor at Basil Reed. I get to Basil Reed, I have got no clue about construction. But then again, that was an opportunity for me to learn, because here I was very young then. I would be sitting in a room with construction is a male-dominated world, and at that time it was mainly white male. And if Basil Reed was owned by the French. So there were a lot of challenges that I faced, but the one thing that was very exciting being in that space is the opportunity to learn new things. And I guess I had an advantage of having a great boss who was exposing me to a whole lot of things. So I got to learn a lot of things in construction, the type of contracts that they use, dispute resolution techniques when there are construction disputes and all of that. So that is another advantage of being exposed in corporate. And then whilst I was at corporate, I'm not going to waste your time into the detail of each and every place of work that I've been in. But then again, I got exposed into the world of corporate governance. Like I said at the beginning, that when we get into the legal profession, we're not aware of some of the career paths that we can follow. We think you get admitted, you do articles, you become an attorney. You don't know you can go practice and be a law clerk to a judge. You don't know you can go and become a company secretary. And when I was recruited to join Group 5, which is also a JSE listed company, and at the time was in the top 40 index, I was recruited as a legal advisor. But when I got there, their board was looking for a Black admitted attorney who is a female to occupy the position of a company secretary. And I guess to be able to meet the transformation imperatives, I was the right person for the job. I was an admitted attorney. I was Black. I hadn't done company secretarial, but I was willing to learn. And I was exposed to JSE listing requirements. I was exposed to the law of corporate governance. And again, what I learned from university, that you don't have to know everything, but you need to know where to find stuff. I was able to know King 3 then, which is King 4 now, back to front. I upscaled myself. I attended courses, seminars to be able to consolidate my position as a company secretary. And I grew very confident in that space, that I was headhunted, literally to be company secretary in the various spheres. So that is another lucrative position that one can look into of being a company secretary, because most companies favor admitted attorneys, because your role there is an advisory role to the board, and you have an opportunity to advise the board on the risks that they face as individuals and as a board and as the corporation itself. So it's a very wide a position, and you are exposed to the operations of the entity, because you are also advising the executive committee what to do, what not to do. But you're like the driver of the company, but nobody sees you. You're kind of in the background, nobody sees you, but all the decisions of the company, you are right there in the middle of it, because they need your advising as far as governance is concerned. And on top of the fact that you have a legal degree and you've practiced, it even helped me even more to assert myself into the role. Now, whilst I was at Group 5, I ventured obviously MTN, and the list goes on. I then decided that was in private sector, obviously. And when I was at Tebe Investments, I got headhunted to a position at Airports Company Secretary. Airports Company South Africa as a company secretary. And that was in 2013. And at that time, I was kind of in crossroads in my career. I was kind of feeling, the role of a company secretary is a bit monotonous, and I would like something more challenging. And I've always known when I left practice that I would come back, but I was not sure how or as what, but I knew that I'd always come back. So I ventured out, and I was thinking, let me join the bar. That was in 2013. And I remember the day that I had completed the forms applying for my pupillage in 2013, I got this call from my headhunter for a position at Airports Company. And I was like, okay, let me see how it goes. And it went very well. And I got to be the group company secretary there. Again, I was exposed to another industry, which is aviation. So you can imagine the exposure to aviation law, the exposure to aviation operations, and obviously governance in the aviation space. So that was something that really, really also empowered me in my career. So I think what I'm trying to say to our students in the platform is that even when you do become a company secretary, there's different industries that you are able to gain exposure in and expertise to equip yourself and to grow in that area, whether you remain as a company secretary or you will use that exposure in the future for something else. But for me, it really, really helped me when I ventured into practice as an advocate. I told myself I'll be a company secretary at AXA for 5 years. Now, that was my stint in the public sector. Got exposed to working with government departments on the governance side of things, got exposed to the red tape of dealing with government and ministers, got exposed to working with the boards of parastatals, and it was a different kettle of fish from the private sector, but all the same, very edifying. Fast forward, I go to the bar. In 2018, I applied to become a pupil. Now, obviously, I've talked about the qualifications. We know that you can join the bar straight from university once you have passed your LLB, and you can go and do your pupillage. But my talk will concentrate more on referral advocates. We know that they are Fidelity Fund advocates, that is independent advocates, and advocates that can take work directly from clients. But I am in the referral advocate space. So the formal qualifications, like we said, it's your junior degree for me, and my LLB and my master's and all of that. Now, there's no requirement for you to have master's, but having master's also, it's a great plus. You know, it goes a long way in advancing you in your career. Obviously, it's something you can do when you're in the workspace already. You don't have to stay at varsity for it full time, unless obviously you want to pursue academia, probably. So with my formal qualifications and my exposure in the corporate world and in practicing as an attorney, I go and I register for pupillage, very confident that this is the space that now I want to play in. And I must say that pupillage opened my eyes a lot, over and above the fact that, yes, I had practiced as an attorney, but it kind of heightened my knowledge, my experience, my exposure, my confidence, my ability as a litigator. And it just, you know, I brought a lot of richness in my career. And it was one of the most gruesome trainings I've ever been through. I've been through articles and I wrote the board exam to become an attorney, but being a pupil was hectic. Apart from the fact that you don't get a salary, you don't get a stipend. I think now there is some stipend that they're giving people, but there's no stipend, there's no salary, and it's intensive. You are in your mentor's chambers every day. You work with him, and you get exposure there with real work that your mentor does, and you go to court with your mentor. So there it starts with the litigation. Your mentor gives you work to draft. You start being exposed to drafting pleadings. Over and above the work that you do with your mentor, they train you by giving you classes. So you've got classes for legal writing, you've got classes for motion court proceedings, you've got classes for civil procedure, for criminal law, for ethics, for motion court, which is the application route of proceedings. So even there, you kind of get a whole lot of practical exposure just in class, over and above what you get when you go to court with your mentor. Now, you're assigned a mentor. You can choose a mentor, or they can assign you a mentor. I was assigned somebody that I didn't know, and I think that was perfect for me, because it kept me on my toes, and I could not take anything for granted. And I had to, know that I am here for this and I need to do this excellently. And then as a pupil, towards the pupillage, you write what they call mock exams. It's kind of a preliminary exams or preliminary board just to acquaint you with the exams when you're going to write for before you become an advocate. So those exams are kind of are marked by your mentor. So you get an opportunity to see your weaknesses, where you're falling short, so that you can be able then to study for your final exams. And you write your final exams. If you are lucky, you pass everything. I passed everything except for criminal law, and I had to have an oral. I got an oral in criminal law, but it was not an intense oral, like a 5-minute thing, and you get in there, you pass it, and you go. So I passed my pupillage, and obviously before you start practicing on your own accord, you have to be admitted. Actually, before you actually write the exam, you have to be admitted as an advocate before you write the exam. And then after your results, which is also a very grueling process to wait for those results, you then go and start practicing. Now, when you practice as an advocate, you are required to have chambers of your own. You have to belong to a group of advocates. So there's different groups of advocates. You might have heard about Thulamela, Group 621, Group 1, and all of that. You practice in a group, but you obviously practice on your own accord. But obviously the advantage of practicing in a group, you've got senior counsel, what we call silks, who you learn from and who expose you to work, because those are the people that will give you junior briefs, who will lead you in some of the matters. There are matters that you will do on your own, which are your own briefs that you will be getting from attorneys when they brief you. So you've got that advantage of also touching base and getting a lot of advice and guidance from the members of your group. So there is great advantage in working in a group. Now, I did say at the beginning that the advocate's profession that I'm talking about is a referral profession. What does that mean? It means that you cannot directly deal with clients. That is, you cannot get work directly from clients as an attorney does. Your work, work is referred to you as an advocate by the attorney instructing you. So we call those instructing attorneys. And then the attorney is instructed by the client. Pardon? Did somebody say something? Can you? Oh, I'm still in. Okay, so you get instructed, obviously, by you get briefed by attorneys, and you don't take work directly from clients, and this work you execute it based on availability and agreed fee. Now, that is the cap bank rule. That is, you can't pick and choose whether I like that work or I don't like that work, or turn down work and all of that. That is why you'd find that today I represent the state, tomorrow I'm having a brief against the state. So you take the work that is given to you based on your availability and agreed fee. And this is also entrenched in the Legal Practice Act of 2014, which also has a code of conduct that promulgates ethics for legal practitioners. Advocates charge fees having regard to the nature of the work that they do, the novelty of the work, the complexity of the matter, the importance of the matter, the time you spend on the matter, and the skill and knowledge that is required. So you are not allowed to overreach. I know there's talk that advocates have got high fees and all of that, but these are the things that are taken into account when you charge your fees. And like I said, that the Act entrenches the fact that referral advocates must only take briefs from attorneys. That's Section 34 of the LPA. And I'm sure you might be aware right now of this whole commotion around the state attorney expecting advocates to tender for work, but that's a story for another day. Now, what is the source of work for advocates? The source of work for advocates, like I said, is from attorneys, and this includes the state attorney. The other source of work is junior briefs, which you will get from senior counsel. And so that's basically the primary places where you get your work. Now, on a daily, what do you do as an advocate? There's lots of research and drafting. So you get a brief, you look into your brief, you understand what the issues are, and obviously you have to have a consultation with your instructing attorney and your client. So that's the type of work that you will do: research, drafting, consultations. Sometimes you may be asked to preside over private hearings, like a disciplinary hearing in a company. They might want an advocate to do that. So you can be briefed by a law firm to come and preside over that particular dispute. And of course, court appearances, which are at the tail end of the whole work that you build into. Now, a little bit about court appearances. You know, I know the work looks also glamorous when you go to court, but there's a lot of work that needs to go behind that. And I'm sure the judge will agree with me when I say that preparation is key in litigating. There is nothing as embarrassing as counsel who does not know his or her papers, who does not know his or her matter, the facts of the matter. You may not well be au fait with all the cases, but at least know the facts of your matter. Let not the presiding judge tell you what your matter is about. You must know where to find your facts in the papers, in the affidavits that you have drafted. You must draft comprehensive pleadings and comprehensive heads of argument. And the kind of drafting that you do, especially with heads of argument, you must draft in such a way that if a judge decides, I don't want to hear you argue, I can decide the matter on the papers, that your papers are so comprehensive, not a thesis, but you are writing for the judge a comprehensive argument to be able to see the issues, look at the facts, apply the law to the facts, and be able to reach a decision. That is your role as an advocate. You are an officer of the court. You are there to assist the court. You are there to assist the judge. Now, the other kind of work, which I think is very important when you're a practitioner to do, is public interest law. And most of it normally comes as pro bono work that does not pay. It's important to do that work. I always say that work keeps you, what's the word? Now the English word has run away from my mind, but it grounds you, you know, and it preserves your integrity, because these are people who cannot afford legal representation, but who've got a lot of injustice that they face, and they need us to be able to represent them without us getting paid. And we need to do it with as much passion as we do for our paid work. But public interest law has got a great reward in that you are not only just giving back to the client or to the community, but you have an opportunity to develop jurisprudence and the law. And I got this opportunity when I did a matter that ended up in the Constitutional Court on the declaration of the declaring unconstitutional Section 9 and Section 10 of the Births and Deaths Registries Act, which prevented single fathers to register children born out of wedlock in their own names. So for me, that was such a privilege to be able to be part of such a brief. We did that brief for the Center for Child Law, and it has changed the law, and it has given rights to people that did not have those rights before. And children that were exposed to statelessness were able to retain their identities, or some of them have their identities because there were a lot of challenges they faced. Some of them did not have IDs until adulthood because they were not registered. So public interest law is very important, and it's something that you must get into when you get into practice. It is very fulfilling. Now, what are the rewards of the profession? The profession is very rewarding financially if you get work and if you do your work properly. It is, I'm not going to lie, it is rewarding, but you need to be disciplined with your finances, because now you don't get paid at the end of the month. You get paid after 97 days, and sometimes the money is a lot. And if you're not disciplined, you can squander your money. You don't pay SARS, and SARS comes knocking at your door. So I guess one of the things that I can say is some of the work that you do, apart from research, consultation, court appearances, is administrative work, your own work in your office, like making sure that your books are in order, you invoice, you pay your taxes. That's very important, because now there's no employer who's going to deduct from your pay at the end of the month and make sure that SARS is paid. It's your baby. When you get to a threshold where you can afford to pay VAT, you have to register as a VAT vendor and be able to pay VAT every 2 months. You pay your income tax, you pay your provisional tax. So those are some of the things that are important to bear in mind, because you are running a practice. And then, like I said, the rewards, for the financial rewards, the ability to manage your own time. I think for me, having children and being married and being at the stage I am in my life and having teenagers, it's been very rewarding for me to be able to manage my own time. I know that if I don't sleep throughout the night, I'm drafting, I can sleep in the following day. I know that I can take a day out of a week and say, you know, I need a breather. But when I work, I know I work. But you are able to manage your schedule. And the exposure to an array of issues, tax, construction, aviation, labor, commercial, and you don't have to have done these things before, because you know where to find the law. Remember, as an advocate, you're like a specialist. So your role is to sit and make sure that you drill down into the issues and you know the law, and you present, you know, arguments that some of them never existed, you know, and it could be for the first time that you're coming up with that. So research is very important. And like I said, you're contributing to the development of the jurisprudence of our beloved South Africa. Now, I think it's very important for me. It will really be remiss of me if I do not give you nuggets along the way. This profession is very exciting for me. I love it. But it's very important that you are equipped for some things that you are not taught in school, for some things that they don't really train you when you are doing pupillage. And I'll be failing in my duty today if I do not share some nuggets that I found to be beneficial for me in practice as an advocate. Before you venture into pupillage, make sure you've got financial stability. Save money if you are working, because you're not going to get paid. So because you don't want to be having the stress of trying to focus on honing your skills and worry about money. Many people have been admitted as advocates, finish their pupillage, only to find that they're not able to continue practicing because financially they're not able to provide for their families. And now they leave the bar and they have to go back and look for work, because financially it is difficult, and we know our economy, you know. So it's important to have financial backup when you get in there. I think, as you will see my journey, I was fortunate enough that because I have worked throughout, I was able to save some money throughout my career. So when I got into pupillage, I was able to pay myself a salary and be able to meet my obligations. So it's important to have financial backup. If you're young and you're a student and you can still get support from home, that's well and good. Get in there, put it as part of your studies to your parents, and do your pupillage and start practicing. Also, something to keep in mind is that the first 3 years of practice, personally, what I told myself was that the first 3 years of practice are an opportunity for me to learn, to grow, to network, to expose myself, whether I get into a brief that pays or not, but to get out there, to meet people, to know how practice works. If I get briefs that pay, well and good, that's a bonus. But the first 3 years also, you may run the risk of not getting the kind of money that you want. But money is there. There is a lot of work to be done. So, that's one nugget. Make sure that financially you are okay. And also when you go to pupillage, if you have a family, if you're a family person, you're married or you've got kids, make sure you've got support at home, because you're not going to have the time. You are not, the judge spoke about some people stop becoming your friends, and with you not even knowing, you're not even aware because you are so busy. You are not going to have a social life for something like 8 months. So be ready for that you're just going to pour yourself into pupillage for that 8 months. But I promise you, it is worth it at the end of the day. Now, once you qualify, actually, even during pupillage, it's very important to have a peer group or a confidant or a couple of friends that you get to offload, with each other. The reason for this is for the sake of your mental health. It's very important to have a support system in the field of people who understand the field. You bounce off ideas, you share what you are going through. You come back, you go to court and the judge shouts at you for whatever reason. You are able to come back and talk about it without taking it personal, because that's the nature of the job. It's not personal. The judge is a person as well. They could have gone through something I don't know, but sometimes it hurts. We are people, we've got feelings. Have people that you can be able to talk to and offload, because the profession can be quite lonely and stressful, and you need someone who understands the space. Now, life is challenging as it is. Take care of your mental health. Develop tools to keep you going and stay the course. If you can get a therapist or a coach, do that. That's very important. You may not get a therapist for all your life. You can get a therapist in pockets of your life. I definitely had to get a therapist after my pupillage, because I was plagued with issues of being a perfectionist, which was paralyzing. I was plagued with issues of having imposter syndrome, feeling like I'm not good enough, which can also be a distraction. You don't have time for that, because you have to produce work and nobody's going to be holding your hand and sympathizing with you. So you have to find tools and develop a support system and structure to be able to carry you along your journey. And it helps to also have professional and objective advice, even from people that are not in the profession. Now, to conclude, I want to say, if you do it right, it is a rewarding, it is a fun and fulfilling profession. And this is my 5th year at the bar, and I am loving it. I have grown a lot, and I'm still convinced that this is the right and the best decision that I made for myself to work and come back into practice as an advocate. There is no formula on how you do it. But one thing I love about our profession and holding a legal degree is the opportunities that we have, a world of opportunities out there. Practicing attorney, company secretary, academic, you can be a commissioner at the CCMA, you can be a prosecutor, you can be a magistrate, you can be a judge. There's a whole lot of things. You can consult, you can even have a consultancy. I didn't tell you that part. I had a stint where I had a consultancy called NBK Corporate Consulting, where I was consulting on corporate governance and legal advice. You can do that, registration of companies and all of that. So the world is your oyster. Just seek lots of advice, know what is out there. You can be a judge's clerk, something that I did not know when I was studying, that I could go and be a judge's clerk at the High Court. You get exposed to how the courts work there, and you get to do research for judges. So it's a world of opportunities out there. Nobody will go without a job. We don't all have to flock in one space, and at variable times, you can shift and change armed with your law degree. And one last word of advice: given an opportunity, upskill yourself. Upskill yourself, upskill yourself. I'm intending to upskill myself next year and register with AFSA and do the dispute resolution suite of courses so that I can be a registered arbitrator. That is an opportunity as well. That is like my retirement plan, so to speak. So you can do that. You can sit in boards with your law degree, because many boards do need a legal advice as a director, to actually gatekeep, for the board and your fellow board members, because you are independent, and sometimes you don't know what happens in the company on a day-to-day basis, but you do need to be well-versed with the law as well. So it's a world of opportunities out there. With that said, I would like to say thank you so much for lending me your ears. I hope that was not too long. But if you've got any questions that you will not be able to ask today, you can feel free to contact me on my email address. You can feel free to call me. Advocate Mbofu has got my details, and we can talk some more. Thank you very much.
Indeed, Advocate Kekana, thank you very much. I'm pretty sure that our attendees have been inspired, as I know I have, especially me also being an advocate. You've inspired me so much today, and I needed that. Also, we appreciate it, and we humbly request that you please stay on for the Q&A session so that our attendees can address you if they feel they need to do so. And at this stage, ladies and gentlemen, also looking at the time, I would suggest that we go directly to the Q&A session as per our program. Ladies and gentlemen, whoever has a question that they feel they need to ask or a comment to make to our guests, kindly just unmute and do so, because I'm not so well versed with Zoom. I'm used to Teams. So I don't know if there's an option for raising hand or whatever, but I would just suggest that you unmute and you go ahead, introduce yourself and ask your question. Thank you.
Greetings, everyone. Am I audible?
You are
Yes,
audible,
we
sir.
hear you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Program Director. My name is Mthembeni Mzobe. I'm a law student. Also, I form part of the NEC for Student Forum. Firstly, I would like to thank Fala for this amazing opportunity. I believe that we have learned a lot, or I must say I have learned a lot from this webinar. I don't have a question. I would like to make a request to every legal practitioner that is present here. My request is that from what I took from this webinar, it is great. It is wonderful. We have learned a lot. But I feel like it is a once-off thing. I have learned a lot today. It's nice to have this thing once in a while. It's great. It is informing and all that. But my request is that if there are means for every legal practitioner that is present here or that is not even present here, may you please have at least one law student that you mentor, a student that will know all these things so that that student can inform others, or so that that student can be equipped and be ready for the outside world once that student is done with his or her degree. If there are means, may we please mentor at least one student per legal practitioner and those who have law firms, at least 2, so that you equip us as students and tell us what you expect from us. I believe if you have your own firm and you mentor maybe a first year from a person from a first year, once that person is done and you've been mentoring that person, I believe ukuthi, that person will know ukuthi, okay, this firm works like this is the culture of the firm and all that, of which I believe it will make things easier for you maybe to take that person for articles or maybe for other opportunities. And my second, and this one it's a question for the second speaker, the professor. I would like to ask you, how old are you, sir? And thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much for the comment and the question. Am I audible?
Yeah, audible, Professor, you may proceed.
Thank you so much. I think it's listening from the 3 of the speakers. It would be unfair for us to start saying from here we are carrying 3 students. It's not our obligation to do so. You as an student, we are equipping you this afternoon and saying this is your opportunity to network, to take an initiative. If it means going to the professor, to the advocates, do so and say, please be a mentor on 1, 2, 3, 4. So now for you to say, we must say we are taking, I think it's unfair to us. It's you as an obligation to network and empower yourself. Things will feed you because tomorrow we are not going to be there. So take up the initiative from this conversation and see who can be in a position to mentor you. Not only here, the country is broad, the international community is broad. I mentor many students in Africa and beyond, and some of them I've never met them, but I mentor them. So I think just reconsider that and work on it. This year I'll be turning 41. Thank you so much.
Advocate Kekana, do you have anything to say to the comment or the request that was made by Mzobe?
No, I agree with what the prof is saying, because I think initiating and being proactive also will just help you in the long run. But people are there, don't be scared to go ask people to mentor you or to give you direction. Thanks.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Advocate Kekana, for that answer. And anyone else who still has a question, please do not be hesitant to ask. This is the moment.
Okay, I see some questions on the chat box. Let me just start and answer the ones that are directed to me, and then I'll see if I can be able to answer the other one, if that's okay with you, Advocate Mpofu.
That is okay. Advocate, you may proceed.
Okay, the last person who asked is asking, here are my questions. Can an LLB student open their own consultancy firm? The answer is yes. I registered a CC at the time, like I say, that is NBK Corporate Consulting. And I put together a profile. I did business cards and I marketed myself and networked myself among my friends. and I was registering companies for them. I was rendering company secretarial services, because sometimes you find that there are companies who cannot afford to have an in-house company secretary full-time, but they want to make sure that they are following proper governance protocols. They require the services of a company secretary ad hoc. So you can consult for companies like that, where you have an arrangement on a quarterly basis. You attend their meetings, you take their minutes, you advise their boards, you train their board members, you do board appraisals for their board members and all of that, and you charge a fee. So you can, as long as you are qualified, you've got your LLB, and it helps. Well, I think what helped me is the fact that I had practiced in the space of governance, and also the fact that I was an admitted attorney. So that also, gave clout to my consultancy firm. So you can. And how can one apply to be a clerk to a high court judge? Well, I think you can, they advertise normally these positions, but I'm sure you can also inquire from the various courts. I've had some of my colleagues actually doing pupillage, and after pupillage, they went and they clerked at the Constitutional Court. I've had some people who were clerks of the Constitutional Court coming and doing pupillage after being clerks of the court. So I think, I don't know exactly where you must go, but you can make inquiries from the registrars of the various courts as to how you can apply to be a clerk of the court. That will be the first point for you to start. I think those are the two that I can respond to. Prof, I think maybe you can respond to the other ones before we move to the next question, because I see there's one that is directed to you.
They want to be a clerk for judges in the High Court. Normally, there is a circular that goes out. You can see it in the court, or I forgot, is it the Department of Public something? The word escapes my mind at this moment. But I can share with you the contacts of one of the clerks. Just ask Advocate Mpofu, then I will share that contact. Then you can inquire from them as to when they can expect this. Then in the Constitutional Court, I know the call is normally made sometime in Feb or March each year. That's the short answer to those questions. Thank you.
I see the other question from Kopano. I avail myself to attend at most networking events around Gauteng. What guidance would you give to law students to better themselves on how to network effective and sell themselves at these networking events? You know what, Kopano, I don't think there's a set way, but the good thing is that you avail yourself to attend most networking events. That's a very good thing to do. Like when law firms are giving talks, I used to do that. They will have breakfast talks. They will have, in the afternoons, they will have talks. They will invite a judge to come and talk. I don't think there's any science in it other than you presenting yourself to the person you want to reach out to. You get into a room, you see a judge, you go introduce yourself. Obviously, you are professional, you are polite, you introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, what your aspirations are. By the time you leave that event, you would have had a contact. I've gained so many contacts from such events. Some of them are followed up on, some have not. Some have reached out to me, some have not. So you don't know what you can get. But the only thing that I can advise you is that put yourself out there, lean in, don't be shy, go and introduce yourself to the people that you know strategically will be able to help you in your journey or in your career.
Maybe if I can add on that, you also look closer to the functions that are held to where you are situated. For example, this Monday, I think from 5:30, there will be a commemoration of the human rights program that was introduced by one of the by Judge Kriegler at the Constitutional Court, and all the former clerks who clerked in the Concord, most of them will be there, not all. So that's another chance to network and ask where are they now. You could speak to one of the judges or two and so on. But mostly, as the previous speaker said, there is no straight answer. Just look out for the events where they are. But if you have a mentor, it's quite easier because that mentor from time to time will say, I'm attending this. Would you mind to come along? Are you free? And so on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. I think there's another question again there that is directed at you, which says, are there opportunities in the ICJ for LLB graduates? I believe it's the International Court of Justice, maybe I'm wrong. It goes on to say, I recently saw Prof. Diretladi's appointment and it got me to ask this question. If you may please assist, I think it's Kiamohetso Mulaudi with that question.
Yes, indeed. There are internships there. If you go on their website, including the International Criminal Court, there are opportunities for graduates. In fact, in all the United Nations bodies, if you go on the websites of each specific body that you want to do your internship for or work, they tell you where to go, how to apply, and so on. Some of them, they provide full funding. Some of them provide partial funding, and some of them do not fund at all. Even maybe before you stretch yourself, too far, even across here in Botswana, at times SADC has some opportunities for students. The Gambia, where the African Court, the African Commission on Human Rights also has some opportunities. You go to the website of the African Union, the opportunities are there as well. Even within your institutions there are some exchange programs for students. So you really need to pay careful attention to those. But I must also emphasize, remember the various opportunities that comes for law students, taking part in moot courts. And when we are there in those moot courts, that's where you get the opportunity to interact with some of the international students, judges, and so on. So just try to spread your wings and do a little bit more. I know the focus for now is securing your studies, but remember the competition is tight. If you bring a CV of someone who's purely studying, and you bring a CV of someone who's done internships, moot courts, and so on, you might say those people are sort of at an advantage. So try to do more and so on. Thank you.
Thank you for the enlightenment, Professor and Advocate Kekana. Ladies and gentlemen, please keep those questions coming in because I'm looking at the time as well. And also, you may still proceed. If there are any other follow-ups, you can still proceed to contact us, and we will also share the contacts of the guests if they do agree. Advocate Kekana has already indicated that she has no issue. And yeah, let's do that. Let's keep those questions so that no one leaves here with confusion.
Good day, colleagues. I hope I'm audible.
You are audible. Proceed.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tefala, firstly, for this wonderful webinar. Like the previous speaker said, we have really learned a lot. My question, I think, is directed to Advocate Kekana.
Advocate Kekana, you have occupied so many roles. You have been an admitted attorney. You've been a company secretary, and now you are a practicing advocate. Among all these roles that you have occupied, which one do you feel like this one you really enjoyed the most, or it is where your heart is at? Yes, and my second question, I think it can be directed to all the members that are present, even yourself, Advocate Mpofu. There seems to be a trend that most students, when they finish with their LLB, mostly want to go through the coordinate attorney route to become attorneys, and there's not a number of them that that want to go to the pupillage route and become advocates. What could be the cause? Is the route of being an advocacy very difficult? Is an attorneyhood an easier way out, or what could be the possible challenges there, as you have observed? Thank you so much. I think those are my questions.
Okay, thank you so much for the question. Yes, I have occupied many roles. You know what? I think I've enjoyed all the roles that I have occupied, to be honest with you. And I think the determining factor probably would be the stage of life that I would be at that particular time. So when I was a company secretary, it worked for me to be in an 8 to 5 type of an environment, secure environment, because I was just starting a family. And so it was secure and predictable, and it was not as demanding. So I knew times where I was busy in that role, and I could plan accordingly for my kids and all of that. So I enjoyed that because it gave me an opportunity to learn something new. Obviously, as an attorney, I was starting out. I was, all starry-eyed, excited to practice and be a lawyer and all of that. I enjoyed that as well. But I must say that now, being an advocate, I am enjoying this the most out of all of them. And I think the reason for that is because, like I said at the beginning, probably my confidence levels are very high because of my previous exposure and everything that I've gained throughout my career. So I feel more entrenched in the profession. And I think the benefit of knowing that you've got options as well. So it's not as daunting when you're just coming into a new space and you've never been anywhere. So I guess the short answer to your question is that I've enjoyed all of them. And right now I'm exactly where I want to be. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Advocate Kekana. Am I audible? My phone is doing some things here. I just need to know if I'm audible.
Yes, you are. You are. Forgive me. We can hear you. Are you still there?
Oh, yes, I am here. Thank you. My phone the screen was rotating. Okay, I heard the person who asked this question saying that he is also directing it to us as well. And I definitely do not have the knowledge that our guests have and the experience as well, but I can just share with you regarding why most people go the candidate attorney route instead of the advocacy route. I think the first thing that I can say is lack of full knowledge of the versatility of the legal field, which is one reason why we felt it proper to actually introduce this webinar, because a lot of people just think of attorney, advocate when they think of law, but this degree has so many angles that one can approach them on, as you have heard even from the first speaker, Ms. Sheila. You have heard also from the professor who's been this and that in the field. You've also heard from Advocate Kekana, who's also been this and that. So I think the first thing is we need to equip ourselves with knowledge of the legal field, its versatility, and then choose what we want to do, and along the way also upskill ourselves. And then the second thing that I would say, I think it's to do with knowing what you want, especially the first speaker spoke about knowing what you want and going after it. I just want to share my own experience. Myself, I started falling in love with this advocacy thing and all that from Sokulen Partners. I believe you know about Sokulen Partners. I would watch that show and I would feel, hey, if I can only be that, if I can only go to court, objection, Your Honor. It was just an infatuation that grew into me wanting to be in that space. And it's to do with manifesting the dream as well, because if I can tell you that I was called advocate in my first year in 2011, when I was doing my first year LLB at Walter Sisulu, I was called advocate because I was always calling myself that. My fellow students were calling me that. It was a joke, but it manifested into what I am today, even though I haven't reached my potential, but because I dreamt of it, it came to be. Sometimes I look at my Facebook posts, my memories, where I was still so skinny and I was the first year, second year, but I captioned my pictures, advocate pro, advocate Mpofu, things like that. So it's about also manifesting your dream, knowing what you want, breathing life into it, and actually going out there and doing what you need to do to be what you want. And lastly, I'm a very big fan of independent thinking rather than depending on group thinking, depending on what everyone else is thinking. I think, especially as LLB students, we see people going out there to become attorneys and you feel like it's a safe space, you feel like it's a comfort zone or something, and you want to follow what everyone else is doing. So I would say be an independent thinker, know yourself as an individual, know what you want, look at your feelings, but at the same time put them aside and prioritize the dream. That's what I would say. Thank you.
There's another question here which says, which one is more rewarding, being a trust account advocate or being a referral advocate? Well,
leaders, please, may we unmute ourselves if we are not the ones who are on the platform. May we please unmute ourselves so that there's no confusion. Thank you. Only the person who's speaking must be on unmute.
Thank you. So, you know what? I cannot speak much for the trust advocates because it's a space that obviously I have not ventured into. But for me, the space that I'm in, being a referral advocate, scary as it is, in that there's no security in terms of you don't know for sure where your next brief is going to come from. But for me, it is rewarding. Maybe for a trust advocate, the fact that you can get a client from the street or people can come directly to you. But for me, I did not choose that route. I guess probably because I had practiced as an attorney, and as an attorney, we've got trust accounts, we've got a fidelity fund certificates and all of that. So I did not want that administrative burden. And I just wanted to focus on the skill and practicing law and just be a litigator and just look at myself. So I did not want to look at the added, I would say, responsibility of having to manage a trust account, for example. So in that sense, for me, the referral profession is most rewarding. It can be a bit risky for other people, which is why I said at the beginning that when you enter into the profession, to avoid worrying yourself with money issues, it's best to kind of have some financial backup. I know it's not easy for all of us. I know some people, they cashed their pension funds and all those kind of things. And I mean, it just depends on what stage of your life you are at, if you are prepared to take such risks. But you need to properly count the costs as to which one you choose and what the benefits and the risks that it comes with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Advocate Kekana. I see there's a question there for the professor that says, oh, sorry, just a moment. What do you think can be done to equip graduates for board exams? Clearly, law school is not doing what it should.
Sorry, I missed the question.
It says, what do you think can be done to equip graduates for board exams? Clearly, law school is not doing what it should.
I so wish I had a straight answer to that, because the legal profession rather is blaming the professors. In other words, the law schools, that law school are not preparing graduates enough to take legal practice. So they are blaming each other. I don't know which one is correct, but from the academic point of view, and I've raised this in another forum, I think when we teach law graduates, we also need to consider, having a diversity of lecturers, including those who are practicing, because they know mostly what is it that is required in practice. And the exams, some of them, they know that these are the things that we deal with on day-to-day basis, because if it's structured, the questions, and you compare them at how a professor assesses a student, those are two different things. So from our part, I think if university doing that, to ensure that at least someone who can provide theory, and at the same time, you also have someone who could provide some practical aspects. For example, the issue of drafting. I cannot give you a theory on drafting. I can tell you that that document must have, for example, the heading, the preamble, and this and that. Whereas if you bring someone who is in practice, he will take you through how do you put together a letter of demand, heads of argument, and so on. In that way, you become a a graduate that is well-rounded with both theory and practice. And I think that could, to a certain extent, contribute in the board exams. But before you write the board exams, there are some courses and so on. I also think you also need luck. At times, if lucky is not on your side, I mean, things take longer to materialize. I hope I've answered. Thank you.
I see that we still have more questions there. Let me take the next one. Let me see there from the chat box. Just a moment. There is one that says Advocate Nchana. I don't know if it was supposed to be Advocate Kekana from KM. It says, would you advise someone who lacks family support on financial level to follow the referral advocate route?
Okay,
I think
now
it was meant for you, Advocate Kekana.
okay, I'll take it. Thank you, Advocate Wolf. You know what? I will be honest with you, because like I made an example earlier on, I've seen colleagues of mine who came and did pupillage and they qualified as advocates, but within the first year of practice, they went back to look for full-time employment because they could not afford to not have a salary, because the space we are in is unpredictable, especially at the beginning, and especially if you don't already have a network and you do not get briefs from the onset. So, I mean, if you are brave, you can do it. It has been done. It is possible. I have seen people straight from university who went to do pupillage and they qualified, and because of how good they are, they got great exposure. Because you remember, your mentor as well when you're doing pupillage is somebody who can expose you to work and expose you to attorneys for you to get work. For example, my mentor, when I started practicing, there were some attorneys that he would refer to me to do work for. So you could be lucky that within the first year of practice, you are able to sustain yourself financially. So there is no one answer of saying, no, don't go for it, or do go for it. But it is important for you to face the reality that, you know, these are the challenges that you might face, that because you know your situation better. So these are the challenges that you might face if finances, you are a breadwinner and at home, they are looking at you. Because unfortunately for some of us as Black people, there's a lot of responsibility that we're carrying at home. The minute you get a law degree, they expect that money to come in. You said you were studying law, you're a lawyer, let's see the money, you know? So they don't understand that after you pass, you go and you do pupillage and you say, I'm not being paid for a year. And what happened to this degree of yours? You know, so like even now currently, I can make an example of a friend of mine who is a single mom with 2 girls who left corporate, who's doing pupillage, is waiting for the results, but she's actively looking for a job to be a company secretary because financially all her resources have been depleted, but she intends to come back. So you can always do your pupillage, try it out. If it's not working, you can always come back. So you know yourself, and you should not put yourself in a position where you're gonna be stressed and it can end up affecting your well-being. Thank you.
May I answer the last question on the chat? Good people, I'm sorry, I'll have to be excused because of other commitments. The question relates to whether is there a job tenure within the academic space, because the person who's asking says he's afraid that he can have a PhD and then get unemployed. The answer is currently there is a lack, or there is a shortage of Black professors in South Africa. You can go to all the universities, you can count them. We are in the minority. Therefore, the field is too open in academia. But the challenge is, if you want to be an academic, you must be serious and make a lot of sacrifices. If you are lazy to study, don't waste your time, because once you pass your master's, you start enrolling for the PhD, you struggle, it takes you 10 years to complete. You are going to be frustrated and even drop out. So just be careful, be sure when you want to go into that space that you know what you want and you are mentally fit for it. And there are quite a number of bursaries if you want to study. For example, since my diploma up until my PhD, I've been studying throughout bursaries. You get a lot of money and so on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor. Actually, now that you have mentioned that you need to go, I am seeing that there is actually several other questions and we did not have a break. It is not fair on our guests. And also, I think at this point, what we can do is we can adjourn and have our vote of thanks and closure. I have captured the questions. I can always arrange for them to be answered because I see some of the questions come as follow-ups. I don't know if, Professor, you can just give us a moment for our Deputy Chairperson to give a vote of thanks and closure. Thank you.
Yes. Greetings, everyone. My name is Advocate Nukumbula Udi. I am the DC of our beloved organization, FALA. I would like to thank you all for attending, all our professional speakers for attending this prestigious webinar, which will be followed by others in the nearby future. This is the beginning of more great engagement that we will have with you. And also I would like to thank our colleagues, Students Forum, and also I want to thank our guest speakers, Acting Judge Pogo. Thank you very much for honoring us, for honoring our invitation. And we think this won't be the last time that you come and engage with us. Thank you so much, Mr. Pogo, Acting Judge. And also Ms. Sheila Adadi, who is not new to this platform. We thank her very much for her engagement with us also. Whenever we need her, she's always available. Thank you very much, Miss Sheila Adadi. We thank you so much. I also want to thank Advocate Kekana for honoring our invitation also. I thank you very much. I thank you so much. Let this be not the last time that you honor our invitation. Also, I'd like to thank the following people. Our chairperson, Mr. Cotton Jana, for making this possible. We thank you so much for all your efforts and endeavors in this organization. You are greatly appreciated. I thank you for also organizing this webinar together as a joint effort from our legal research team, Advocate Mpofu. Thank you so much. Your efforts are also appreciated. It does not go unnoticed. All the efforts that you are making to this organization, we appreciate you, greatly appreciate you so much. And Mr. Sebola, our SG, we thank you so much for working tirelessly during the whole week to make sure that the event is a success. Thank you so much for the sleepless night that you had, engaging. Even in the night, we engage for such events. Thank you so much, Mr. SG. We thank you so much. All our efforts to the movement are noticed. And to our guest speakers, please do call again when needed. This movement will not be a success without our joint effort. Together with you, we will go far. To you, our student, I believe that you are motivated and encouraged to do better in your studies to achieve success in your future endeavors. We really appreciate all who took effort in this very important day, a Derby Day, ignoring the game, but coming to attend this prestigious moment with us, prestigious event. And we hope that you will still be able to attend the Derby after. Thank you so much from me, the DC of FALA organization. Well, thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of our webinar. Advocate Nukumulaudi, our DC, thank you very much. Fala Executive Committee, thank you very much. Attendees, thank you very much. Guests, thank you very much. This is the end of our session. Please look out for some of the messages that we've just been sending now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Mpofu, are you still on the platform?
Yes, I'm still here. Is it the DC?
Yes, yes. I think we must talk aside for
Oh,
the
okay. I'm
scheduled meeting. Yeah.
okay. All right. Thank you. I just wanted to send some messages here to say those who are not in Fala, who wish to join, can contact us and so on and so forth.
Okay.
I'll be with you just now. Those who are still in the platform, thank you very much, leaders. I truly appreciate this and I hope we can do more in future. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much. Please do enjoy the rest of your day.